surely when reading an article like the one on WikiLeaks with the title Freedom of Religion in China, that compared to seeing what is really happening in Communist China becomes an exercise in do not believe your eyes, believe these words. The Constitution of Communist China clearly states that religion is protected, and then the state of Communist China violates that protection on a daily basis. So how does Communist China square its official position on freedom of religion with the fact that, according to the Christian Post, China is forcing Christians to replace Jesus with communist posters and turning pulpits into game rooms? Gee, that doesn't sound like the communists are doing what they say or saying what they do, does it? And this dichotomy between ink on paper and pictures on the internet is easily seen to be a pattern of conduct, or should I say illegal misconduct, on the part of the communists. As in the case of the Golden Lampstand Church in Shuangzi province, seen here in an article by ChristianHeadlines.com, a beautiful structure, financed in full by the congregation, a welcoming place of worship, or at least it used to be, before it was blown up by the communists and reduced to a pile of rubble. But I'm sure if the congregation had merely made a plea to local officials, the church would have been spared. Looking at this picture, maybe not. After all, back in 2009, when the church was being built, church members camped out at the construction site to protect it, but were awakened during one night by government officials, and they were severely beaten, and the partially completed structure was destroyed, a foretaste of what was to come 9 years later. But you have to hand it to the communists. Our communists, now out of the closet as Democrats, although they revile the Christian and Jewish faiths, have become quite fond of Islam. The communist Chinese, however, are equal opportunity religious oppressors, applying their tyrannical techniques to all faiths, including Islam, as noted by religionstolerance.org. But never fear, as written in Foreign Policy Journal, the Uyghurs, Muslims who are ethnic Turks, are undergoing a state-sponsored metamorphosis. They are being Sinicized. Sinicization is a process whereby the non-Chinese are remade in the likeness of Han Chinese, that's the dominant ethnic strain in Communist China, in order for the Uyghurs to adapt the Han culture, customs, and way of life. You know, the communist way to making religious sausage. Chop them up, blend them in a grinder, and press them out into nice uniform casings, ready for inclusion in their God-free society, ready to worship Xi. Did I say worship Xi? As in the leader of Communist China? So how does that work? Well, remember that article by the Christian Post about the communist posters? Well, not just posters. In many cases, as reported by Newsweek, Christians in China must replace Jesus with pictures of Xi Jinping. Of course, you can say you prefer Christ over Xi, in which case you will lose all of your social services. Another one of those communist carrot or stick things. Or should I say, stick or bigger stick? But there is hope. As the Telegraph reports, despite the repression, Christianity is continuing to grow in China, and by 2030, Communist China may have more churchgoers than America. And if events around the globe have you thinking of the end times, remember what the Bible says. Society will degenerate, become as evil as in the days of Noah, and as the Apostle Paul said, that society would descend into a black pit of immorality, violence, paganism. He asserted that men will be lovers of self, lovers of money, and lovers of pleasure. People will be boastful, arrogant, and unholy, and children will be disobedient to parents. Well, it sounds like we've arrived. Buckle up, the persecution will only increase. And as for what's happening with the Falun Gong, that situation is the cause for an entire episode on its own. So stay tuned later for part 2 of Freedom from Religion in China.